Hello, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of It's Your City. I'm your host, Courtney Bloomer. Today's episode is brought to you by the Brewery Arts Center in downtown Carson City, bringing a variety of arts and entertainment to the downtown Carson City area. Our guest this week is Carson City Sheriff Ken Furlong.
How you doing? Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Indeed. We are deep into the holiday season now.
We are past the whole Black Friday thing or Wildness Friday or whatever they want to call it. Local business Saturday, and now we're on a dead run.
We're creeping up on Christmas here. And New Year's Eve, which is a big night for your guys as well.
You know, New Year's Eve is predominantly a big night outside of Carson. It certainly has a lot of events that go on here, but the major attractions obviously are the downtown Reno events and the State Line. God love the folks that go to State Line. I have not seen a year where it's not freezing cold, and they still love to bring in the new year that way.
All right. So the holiday season in general is a busy time for folks here in Carson City. Yes. And that is no different for law enforcement. Let's start out by talking about a few things that people should keep in mind throughout the holiday season and also the winter. Let's start out with something that people might not think that much about as a law enforcement issue, but defrosting your car in the morning.
Defrosting your car in the morning. Yeah, some of us have these cool gadgets on our car where we can start the car up and get it warmed up and so on and so forth, but the car is not actually started. In other words, everything's still turned off and locked up. But others, they walk outside, they turn their car on and leave the keys in, they go back in the house. That presents a significant problem because there are people around that will snatch that car in 2 seconds. We've already seen it happening here in Carson. I caution everybody, do not do that. Take the extra time to warm your car up. If you can't secure it, then just sit in it and warm your car up. Get it nice and defrosted, scrape off your windshield, make sure that you can see before you go, and off you'll have a better day.
Right. It is never a good day when it starts out with your car.
Where's my car?
Also, the holiday season is a time for many people. They're going out, they're purchasing maybe some expensive goods that they wouldn't normally have either in their house or in their vehicle. What should folks do to secure their belongings?
This is the time of year when the nosy neighbor is your best friend. Okay, and I do mean that seriously, because this is the time when neighbors can watch over each other and make sure that the bad things or the suspicious things don't occur in those neighborhoods. Lock your belongings up and out of view if they're going to be in the car, and that includes when you're going from store to store. Can be some challenges to that, but you don't want to present yourself or your gifts for a theft. And so lock your cars, put the gifts and things away from plain view. If you don't have a trunk type vehicle, just take a blanket and put it over the top of them. Don't advertise what's inside the car. Right. And the same goes for your home. Keep an eye on your neighborhood. If you see something that just doesn't look right, please, we enjoy those types of calls. In fact, this year we added on a new telephone number for the sheriff's office. It's just 887-COPS. Okay, it's a non-emergency. I don't know that it's an emergency. It just doesn't feel right. Call COPS. And that'll get over to our dispatch center. Our patrols can get into that area and make sure that everything is okay. It is absolutely essential because we're having a good year. We really are. And I would like to see us, as I spoke with my sergeants just this past week, I'd like to see us really end the year on a positive note. And the thefts from the stores, the thefts from the parking lots, the thefts from the homes, that on top of credit card scams, those are the things that you have to be aware of. How can I make this a good season? By not becoming a victim of a crime is a number one thing.
That is a good way to go. And that continues to after Christmas. After you open that big screen TV, yes, don't throw the box out in front of your house so everyone knows that you just got a big screen TV.
Right. You put that big screen TV in front of your big front window in the house and your box is out front. And it goes, And Courtney, I'm glad you brought that up because there is one other item that we do want neighborhoods to be aware of. This is also the time for a lot of deliveries. I ordered my stuff for Christmas. Right. I ordered you some beautiful things. It's just going to arrive.
UPS is going to leave it on the porch.
They're going to leave it on the porch. Okay, once it's on that porch, you know, it's a good idea for neighbors to look out for after one another. Make sure nobody's following that UPS truck walking around doing their Christmas shopping right in behind.
On your front porch, yeah.
These are really simple, good ideas. And that's why I say the nosy neighbor is your best friend at this time of year.
Right, looking out for you.
Looking
and
out
your
for you
belongings.
and everybody else. Yes.
Exactly. Sticking in the public safety vein, it is getting dark early now. We're having some pedestrian vehicle conflicts.
We're having way too many pedestrian vehicle plus vehicle conflicts. We have not had, if there was one thing that was bad this year for our Carson community, and that's been traffic accidents. And why does this create such a concern of mine? Well, maybe I did a dumb thing and I got into an accident, but my accident, it was with you, and you're en route to your appointments, to your work, to your whatever it is, and now everything has been disrupted. Your car is out of service. Now how are you going to go to work tomorrow? All of these things really just drive a real thorn in me. This year we've not had a good year. And I think that the professionals in the field are looking at every possibility of what can we change, what can we do. And within the sheriff's office, I've instructed all of our divisions, they will crank up the traffic citations. We have got to narrow down on this distracted driving, speeding, #1 issue in this town. I got to get through that light. Not stopping at stop signs. All of these things lead to, I'm in too much of a hurry to comply, and now I run into your car and your life is disrupted.
Right, or in some cases you run into me and my life is over.
And your life is over.
And so we need to really be looking out for folks.
We do. When we talk about the most tragic side, and that's the auto versus pedestrian, because rarely does the pedestrian win in that battle. Right. As we saw here very, very recently down on Stewart Street. The pedestrian owns a responsibility here. And while the fullest details are not completely done, the fatality down on Stewart Street was a pedestrian walking outside of the crosswalk at a well-lit, traffic-controlled, crosswalk-painted intersection. And so when the pedestrian does that, they turn the driver into it's a catastrophe because they don't expect to see somebody in the middle of a roadway. Now, who's the victim here? Well, certainly the person who got hit. But the person who got hit was doing something that was creating the risk or the circumstance where the driver of the car has just experienced a life-changing event. And I've seen this over and over again. So many of our fatalities here in Carson, over the years, the pedestrian has owned an awful lot of that risk. And so, as we had when we were children, kids, stop, look, and listen. It applies to us adults
really
as well.
Important. Everyone needs to be taking steps to preserve their own safety.
Exactly.
So use the crosswalks. We have a lot of them, especially in our beautiful new downtown.
Yes, we do.
Use the crosswalks. Think about maybe putting on some light color clothing if you're going to be out and about at night.
You know, and I think that's a very, very good point. Very often that's the first thing that people, in fact, I answered an email on my way here, not texting and driving. What about additional lighting? Very often these are occurring in our corridors with adequate lighting. But an awful lot of our pedestrians are walking, the dogs, taking their exercise, doing other things, riding bicycles in darkened areas. It's very, very good. Carry a flashlight. Wear bright colored clothing. Make yourself obvious. And again, pay attention.
Yeah.
It doesn't help to be right if you are severely, severely injured.
That's right. And texting and walking can be just as dangerous as texting and driving.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So, any other important holiday safety tips we should know about?
You know, there is one other one that we follow as a statistic. Take note here. Keep an eye on your bills. This is following the holiday season is where we see that upsurge in fraudulent credit card application reports. In other words, you threw your receipts away, but they were easily retrievable from me. I get access to your information. Protect your receipts. Make sure that you don't allow other people access to your credit cards. Fraud reports tend to surge right after Christmas, and that's people who got access to your information and used your information to go do their own Christmas shopping.
Absolutely.
That's something that we're going to look at in the January and February timeframe. Every year we see that surge go up.
And of course, there is one more thing. The holidays are a time for parties.
Yes.
A time for parties. If you're going to be engaging in party activities, be safe. Please designate a driver.
You know, and we do want to touch on that. With question 1 passing, okay, it is very, very important that all of us put that on the front of our minds and not the back. Most of the celebrations are social in nature. That means I'm going to your house, or where the two of us are going to an office party, or whatever the case is. We're traveling to do this stuff,
right.
And so we have to think ahead. We have the holiday season office parties, or the get-togethers in the neighborhood, or at our homes. We also have the Christmas Day celebrations, and then followed by the New Year's. So we have a lot going on right now in front of us, and we need to make sure that we're safe in the way we do it. If you're going to do the Reno trip, have a designated person. Absolutely. If you're going to do the Tahoe trip, take a jacket and and have a designated person, and be mindful of that, because you know, we've had a few bad incidents that have occurred, especially in the cold environments. Too much alcohol, too much under the influence, and they wander off and become victims of the cold weather conditions. All of these things, that designated driver is more than a designated driver. He's that rational person
that can keep you safe.
He's the rational person who doesn't think your joke's funny because he's not.
But talk a little bit about what resources are there for folks who maybe find themselves at a party and maybe they have had a little too much to drink. What are some resources they can use?
There is not a business in this community that will not see to your safety. I am absolutely convinced. I work with the businesses all over town, the bars in town. There is not a business here in Carson City that won't escort you to your car because you have high valuable gifts with you, get you to a cab, get you home safely. They rely on you coming back, and we don't have that unscrupulous, here, I got your money, I'm done with you. No, they really want you to come back, and they want you to be safe. So if you have a circumstance, please talk to the business and tell them you would like somebody to walk you out to the car to make sure everything is fine. We do have all that all the way around the clock shopping here in Nevada. If that's the circumstance. If you're at a party and you find yourself, well, my plans fell through and now I'm okay to drive. No. Get a hold of somebody. They will make sure that you get home safe and that you avoid the whole catastrophe.
All right. Before we let you go today, we did just over a month ago have an election here in our community, and a couple of issues passed that are relevant to some of the law enforcement activities that are going to be taking place in Carson City. Let's talk first about question 1.
Question 1 passed, and that's background checks. For us here in Carson City, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of impact. By and large, as I have been briefed, most of our gun sales, say gun shows that are in different places around town, they're doing background checks already. Okay. Question 1 is going to increase the number of background checks, but it's not going to have a significant impact on, okay, the sheriff's going to jump up and ask for more people to do background checks. The background checks don't come through us. They go through the state. And so there is going to be somewhat of an increase, I can well imagine. But here locally, I don't see a circumstance that is going to necessitate me losing any more hair than I've already lost, or to be horribly concerned. I still stand by my perception or my word, my opinion, that the single biggest factor we have in guns is the mental health of the people with access to them. And that doesn't mean that Johnny owns a gun. if there are weapons in the house, and this is a good time of year where a lot of people are buying, these types of things, make sure you have the means to secure it.
Right.
And so that unauthorized or unintended people don't get access to the weapons
And especially kids.
It's an everyday common sense thing, but it's something very worthwhile to pay a lot of attention to. Question 2 passed. That has certainly changed a social norm.
Right, and let's tell people what question 2 was in case they weren't paying attention.
Question 2 was recreational use of marijuana. And it's long been on the ballots. We've known about this for most of our lives, and it has passed in Nevada. What does that mean? Well, that's the trick right there. It's going to take time for the state to establish its regulatory agencies, create the regulations or the circumstances that communities, such as Carson City, will base their local ordinances on. Who can sell, how much can they sell, where can they sell, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of regulations that I don't anticipate we will see before summer or even later, as some of the articles I've read. This is a challenge. We have changed a social norm. It doesn't happen at the stroke of midnight on January 1st. Yes, the legalization is there for recreational use. What does that mean to our folks on the street? Again, there's not much change here. You weren't going to be arrested for simple mere possession of marijuana before. It was only a citable offense. Now that won't be even a citable offense, provided you don't have the upper levels. You're not trafficking, you're not making all sorts of deals, and you're not driving.
Right, talk about that, because that presents an interesting challenge that some people might not have thought of.
We foresaw changes in our culture coming, not just here in Carson City, but statewide. We've added on additional training for the officers to be able to detect the differences between under the influence of a narcotic or a controlled substance and under the influence of an alcohol substance. We foresaw that, so we've already ramped up our training to be able to detect and understand what it is that we're confronted with. But it is critical. People should take this question 2 initiative, ballot passage, and apply the same philosophy as alcohol. It doesn't belong in your car. That's the worst place for it. And you don't belong behind the wheel if you're using it. And now we go kind of flip a little bit back towards the weapons. Make sure you secure it if you have it at your home. Because children are children, and none of us can deny that we were there once. Okay? The children have those curiosities, and when moms and dads and aunts and uncles and family members have strong views, the children are listening. And the number one question we had when we were growing up was, why do I have to wait till I'm 21? I know what I'm doing.
Right. Kids are invincible. We know that. And also we know that a lot of the method that people are going to use to take this marijuana is not through smoking. It's going to be through edibles. It's going to be some of those kinds of things that might be really tempting for kids.
We will see how Nevada goes. We are mindful of other states that have passed this very same type of activities. And what we have recognized is the edibles just skyrocket. And that presents us, again, with unique challenges. You've got your tray sitting in the passenger seat on your way to the Christmas event or the New Year's Eve event. Is it good? And I don't mean really good. I mean, what is it? Edibles tend to be one of those items in the market that have skyrocketed in those states where they have legalized recreational use.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
It is, and going back to your topic, the election, I think it's mindful for everybody to understand. We just experienced in these relatively short amount of years one of the worst economic depressions, I'm going to call it, all right, depressions that we have seen in our lifetimes, and in many cases our parents' lifetimes. We have seen a change in social norms. We've seen national elections like never before. all of these things happen. We have every reason to be very proud that we're living right here, right now, today, because 100 years from now, they're still going to be talking about you and I and how we dealt with all of these cultural and social and political changes that occurred right in this time period.
That's right. It's an interesting time.
It's something to be proud of.
And we will see what happens.
We will see.
We will see what happens. All right. Sheriff Furlong, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Courtney.
And thank you for joining us for this week's edition of It's Your City, brought to you by the Brewery Arts Center. If your business would like to sponsor a future edition of It's Your City, please contact Darla at the address shown on your screen. I'm your host, Courtney Bloomer, wishing you a very happy holiday season from all of us here at the show. We'll see you next week.